King Stephen of Blois ruled England from 1135 to 1154 and is remembered for presiding over one of the most turbulent periods in English history, a time of civil war known as the Anarchy. His reign, marked by a bitter struggle for the English throne, was defined by conflict, rebellion, and a fractured kingdom. Stephen's reign stands as a reminder of the vulnerability of the English monarchy during the Middle Ages, and the volatile nature of succession politics in an era where the power of the crown was constantly challenged by both external and internal forces. The central event of Stephen's reign was the prolonged civil war against his cousin, Empress Matilda, who had a claim to the throne through her father, King Henry I. This conflict, known as the Anarchy, would not only weaken the central authority of the English crown, but also change the course of English monarchy and governance. Despite Stephen's initial success in securing the throne, his inability to maintain control over his realm and the ongoing conflict with Matilda and her supporters ultimately led to a compromise that would shape the future of the English crown. Stephen was born around 1092, the son of Stephen of Blois, Count of Blois, and Adela of Normandy, daughter of William the Conqueror. His family was well connected within the Norman aristocracy, and Stephen grew up in a world shaped by the aftermath of the Norman conquest of England in 1066. Stephen's early life was spent primarily in Normandy and France, where he developed strong ties to the Norman aristocracy. Stephen's inheritance was limited compared to that of other noble families in Normandy and England. Upon the death of his father in 1102, Stephen inherited the title of Count of Mortain in Normandy, but his prospects of ruling a substantial kingdom seemed distant. However, his life was dramatically altered in 1135 by the death of his maternal grandfather, King Henry I of England. Henry I, the fourth son of William the Conqueror, had established a strong and relatively stable rule in England, following his ascension to the throne in 1100. Henry had no male heirs, but his only surviving legitimate child, Matilda, often called Empress Matilda, had been designated as his successor. Matilda was married to the Holy Roman Emperor Henry V, and she had been crowned Empress of the Holy Roman Empire. But Henry V's premature death in 1135 set off a deadly struggle over who would succeed him. At the time of Henry I's death, Matilda was in Germany, and her claim to the throne of England was weakly supported, both because of her gender and the political climate. Henry's death also left England vulnerable, as many of the powerful barons and nobles in England did not recognize Matilda's right to rule. Stephen, who was one of the leading claimants to the throne and a cousin of Matilda, seized the opportunity to press his own claim. Stephen had been in England at the time of Henry I's death, and unlike Matilda, he enjoyed significant support among English barons, particularly in the south. Stephen was a popular figure and had a reputation for being a capable and charismatic leader. He quickly garnered support from much of the English nobility, especially in the wake of Henry's death. Stephen's early reign saw widespread acclamation as he was crowned King of England in December 1135. With the support of the English Church and most of the leading nobles, who saw Stephen as a more palatable candidate than Matilda, who had been living in the court of the Holy Roman Empire for many years. However, Stephen's swift rise to power was met with immediate resistance. Matilda's supporters, including her half-brother Robert of Gloucester and her uncle David I of Scotland, soon raised forces against him. What followed was a protracted and bloody conflict over control of the English throne, which would become known as the Anarchy. The Anarchy, the name given to the civil war between Stephen and Matilda, is one of the most tumultuous and destructive periods in English history. This conflict was not simply a matter of two factions battling for the throne. It was a widespread breakdown of royal authority, law, and order that caused widespread suffering across England. Stephen's initial success was not due to his military genius, but to his ability to exploit the existing political fragmentation in England. He quickly gained control of most of southern England, including London, and most of the kingdom's major towns. However, Stephen's inability to establish effective control over the country's powerful barons and the northern and western regions led to persistent challenges to his rule. Matilda, in contrast, had a more difficult time gaining support initially, but eventually built a powerful coalition. Her supporters, including Robert of Gloucester, began to press Stephen from multiple fronts, leading to a series of battles and sieges. The military campaign between Stephen and Matilda was characterized by fluctuating allegiances, changing territorial control, and devastation across England. Stephen's rule was never secure, as several regions of the country, including the powerful northern barons, remained loyal to Matilda. One of the key events in the anarchy was the capture of Stephen by Matilda's forces in 1141. This event is considered one of the turning points of the Civil War. Stephen was taken prisoner after the Battle of Lincoln in February 1141, leaving the kingdom in the hands of Matilda's faction. Despite his imprisonment, Stephen's supporters managed to regain control of the situation, and in 1142, Stephen escaped from captivity. His return to power was a blow to Matilda's cause, but neither side was able to gain a decisive victory. The anarchy also saw the rise of powerful regional leaders who increasingly acted as independent rulers, further destabilizing the central authority of the monarchy. This decentralization of power, along with the conflict between rival factions, had long-lasting consequences for the governance of England. While Stephen was recognized as king by most of the English nobility, his reign was fraught with challenges. His military strategy lacked cohesion, and his failure to establish a strong central government allowed the conflict to drag on for years. Throughout the anarchy, Stephen faced resistance not only from Matilda's supporters, but also from other noble factions who were either fighting for greater autonomy or attempting to exploit the chaos for their own gain. The lack of centralized authority during Stephen's reign contributed to a breakdown in law and order throughout England. Widespread pillaging, the abandonment of royal justice, and the lack of royal protection for the common people turned England into a land of lawlessness. The English Church also found itself embroiled in the conflict, with both sides attempting to win ecclesiastical support. Stephen's relationship with the Church was often strained, as he was forced to rely on the support of local bishops and abbots to maintain his power. The conflict had significant consequences for the structure of English society. Stephen's inability to resolve the Civil War weakened the monarchy and undermined the feudal system. The king's failure to protect his subjects or guarantee the stability of the realm eroded public confidence in royal authority, making it difficult for any future monarch to assert the same level of control that had existed under Henry I. The anarchy effectively came to an end in 1153 with the Treaty of Wallingford, which marked a crucial turning point in Stephen's reign. By this time, both Stephen and Matilda were exhausted by the prolonged conflict, and neither side was able to achieve a decisive victory. The Treaty of Wallingford was a compromise, in which Stephen agreed to recognize Matilda's son, Henry, as his successor, while Stephen remained king for the remainder of his life. This agreement set the stage for the eventual succession of Henry II in 1154, which brought an end to the Civil War and began the era of the Plantagenet dynasty. Although Stephen retained the throne for another year, The treaty effectively sidelined him as a ruler and laid the groundwork for the rise of the next generation of the English monarchy. Stephen's reign, though marked by personal ambition and military failures, would be remembered as a period of lost opportunities and wasted potential for England. Stephen's inability to restore central authority and maintain order during the anarchy revealed the fragility of the medieval English monarchy. The period of the anarchy weakened the authority of the king and set the stage for future conflicts over succession and governance. Yet the Treaty of Wallingford and the eventual rise of Henry II ushered in a new era of relative stability under the Plantagenets. His failure to maintain control over his realm, combined with the breakdown of feudal loyalty, marked the beginning of a trend in which the English crown would struggle to maintain its authority over powerful regional lords. This would continue to shape English politics for centuries. Stephen's reign was one of the most dramatic and complex in English history, marked by political instability, civil war, and military struggle. The anarchy, the conflict that defined his reign, was a period of profound disruption that tested the very foundations of English society and governance. While Stephen's initial success in seizing the throne was followed by numerous military victories, his inability to consolidate power and resolve the succession crisis led to a prolonged and bloody civil war.